Affirmative Reaction Podcast. 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 Affirmative Reaction Podcast.
This is the Affirmative Reaction Podcast. What is the Affirmative Reaction Podcast, you ask? Well, I certainly would like to say it is anti-woke.
Meaning we asleep.
We are, well, I know I certainly am, being as the black on this program, anti-racist, because the anti-racist is mostly nonsense. It isn't anything really rooted in fact. It's mostly rhetoric based off of some historical truths. You know what I'm saying? You know, that kind of goes without saying.
So you're anti the anti-racist.
Anti the anti-racist, which
Does that mean you're a racist because the anti is cancel?
I don't think so. I wouldn't call myself racist. If we're going,
I was thinking woke math there for a minute.
If we're using woke math, I can't be racist because I'm a black with a capital B black.
You're a person of color.
POC.
Not a colored person.
Not according to some organizations. How else can we? What else can we use to describe this program? Maybe slightly offensive if you are offended easily. If it's funny, if
it's
you
not our goal to offend.
No, so,
that'd be very easy to do.
Somewhat.
It might be accidental.
Yeah. But other than that, man, we like to bring you stories that interest us, that are interesting in the realm of whatever, news, politics, culture, whatever is interesting. And how we start off this program, we started off with before I get into that, let me just say, please take the time to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can find us on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio. Subscribe to our Podbean, Affirmative Reaction Podcast, or you can search AR20 Podcast on Google. Like the Facebook page, follow the Twitter. If you're on Gab, you can follow us on Gab at Affirmative Reaction. Like the kids say, we everywhere. We all over the internet, social medias. Don't be scared to comment. Don't be scared to share. I can certainly say I hear a few people who listen who are kind of a bit skittish to share this program because they don't want to come off as, they don't want to be attacked, so to speak, for, you know what I'm saying?
Don't want to get canceled.
They don't want to be canceled. That's basically the best way to say it. They don't want to be canceled.
If you're listening and you live with your mom still, there's no way you can be canceled, so don't worry about that.
You already
go ahead and share.
You're already behind the 8 ball. If you, we understand people's situations may be different, but generally speaking.
Before we start, I want to give a shout out to this IPA I've been drinking. It's very good, but I don't know how to pronounce it, so I'm going to let Google do that for me.
Houblon Chauffé.
So if you ever see a bottle in the store and it has this garden gnome picking what looks like berries, but probably hops, that's the beer I'm drinking. It's very strong and it's very good. I highly recommend it.
Send it. What is it called again?
Houblon Chauffé.
Houblon Chauffé.
Thanks to Belgium for that one.
Nice. But again, this is the Affirmative Reaction Podcast, and we like to start this program off with a segment we like to call
Headline Reaction.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
And like we always say, this can escalate to maybe us being triggered, maybe us being clickbaited. That's the whole point of headline reactions. And we have a couple of notable news sites pulled up. Let's go to America's number one news, CNN. Nice.
Clown News Network.
And their biggest headline: Gates showed lawmakers nude photos. Sources say. I heard the thing I heard about that is it wasn't necessarily the I guess the young girl that they accusing that he slept with, but they just saying that in the past he showed his colleagues pictures of women.
Well, that
that
makes
he
him a
hooked up
terrible
with.
human.
Yep.
Because none of us have ever done that.
No, I've never done that. No.
Box TV.
What else we got here on CNN? Chauvin defended restraining Floyd in phone call with supervisor.
All right.
Maybe I'm dumb, but I don't even get that.
You know that trial's going to go on for a long time.
All I'm gonna say with that is there will be some unhappy people at the end of that trial.
Right.
I asked a couple of friends of mine today, have anyone been paying attention to it? I have been. I haven't been watching the testimonies like daily, but I peek into them, try to keep up with some of the highlights and some of the things that are coming out. In my humble opinion, I'm not an expert, I'm not a lawyer. I'm more or less thinking if I was a juror and trying to look at it objectively, there's some things that's coming out that could possibly sow some reasonable doubt that he wasn't murdered. That's all I got to say about that.
Well, there's going to be people that won't accept anything in the electric chair, and there'll be people that won't accept anything besides full exoneration. So
that is true, and like you said, I'm certainly somewhere in the middle of that.
As long as it's fair, as long as the jury gets to see,
exactly,
we'll see what happens.
Which
I'm not pulling for one side or the other. I just want it to be. I want it to play out like it should.
Let's just say I'll say let's just say assume that it is. Both sides are going to be able to present their argument. They've the way trials work. They've agreed on the evidence that they're going to present. You know what I mean?
As long as there's not if it doesn't fit, let's to quit moment.
It might be.
Because that was one moment that sealed the entire case for OJ.
It did. But have you heard what some of the jurors from that OJ trial have been coming out and saying recently? One have said that they kind of the way they reached their verdict was payback for Rodney King. Oh,
I've watched it was a docu-series, like an 8 or 10 part series, and I saw that.
So
I mean, what can you do? There's people.
Yeah.
If you already believe something, no matter what happens in the courtroom, exactly. You're gonna vote. You're gonna say what you want to say.
Exactly. That's the court of public opinion. What else we got here on CNN? Nothing is clickbaiting me. More than 11,000 cases of troubling variant reported in the U.S. These states have highest numbers.
Look at COVID-19 is the only bold red letters on the page. 55,000 U.S. deaths. It's been that way for like 2 months, dude.
Yep. That's a good thing, though, right?
Yeah, I don't want to fall for your clickbait. I'm not going to.
Nope.
I'm getting vaccinated.
Wait, this might. The first Korean American first lady in the U.S. We will not stand silent anymore. The reason why that might be clickbait for me is because I want to know who's the first Korean American first lady.
I thought first lady was a president's wife.
Yeah.
But it's not capitalized first lady.
Yeah, click.
No, it's an opinion piece.
Maybe later. Nothing is clickbait.
I can go without knowing who that is for now.
All right, one more go at this with Fox News. America is watching is the tagline. All right, here we go. Fox News biggest headline. Patrol officer gives update on sisters dropped over border wall by smugglers in disturbing video.
That means you have to watch the video.
You catch any wind of that? I've seen the video.
I didn't even know about that.
A couple of video caught a couple of smugglers.
What do you mean dropped over the border? You mean the new one they built?
I'm not sure if it's the new one.
It's like 90 feet tall.
It can't be the new one then, because this was one they they climbed up with a baby in their hand. But you see two smugglers literally drop two kids over the wall and then scurry back on the other side. And eventually, the authorities picked the kids up
and put them in those
cages,
aluminum foil packages or whatever they got them in down there. Or maybe they're in San Diego by now.
It is a bit disturbing, but the more disturbing part is knowing that's happening constantly on a daily basis. Like it's
allowed to happen.
That's the thing. You know what I mean?
It's not just happening; it's allowed.
And
to happen.
who are these babies' parents who know that that's gonna happen?
I heard it's a big business that you pay a sum of money like $5-10 grand. They get a wristband. They just send them across the border.
Yeah, with a number in their
pocket.
With a
number on it. So maybe that's a lot of money to them. I don't know.
Reports have said I've heard reports that the cartels and smugglers made $14 million. They make $14 million a day doing that shit.
Yeah, it's outrageous.
Let's see if there's any clickbait on Fox News. Floyd girlfriend gives emotional testimony about drug use. Biden and First Lady may benefit from some Spanish lessons.
No bueno.
White House doubles that. No.
I just got to say that Mitch McConnell looks like a freaking horror movie character or something right there. Look at that.
Yeah, he does. He's all pale and frail.
He looks like one of those old 1800s photos when you pose with the dead body because you can only afford one photo for your whole life. You know what I'm talking about? They have like babies and stuff propped up, eyes open, and the whole family's gathered around him smiling.
That guy put on his best suit.
Yeah, that's what he'd be looking like. Weekend at freaking Mitch's.
Mitch and Biden.
Biden looks a lot healthier though. Maybe they did that on purpose, but
yeah, he got a makeup team.
Oh,
he got the best makeup team. But no clickbait for headline reactions.
No, I don't really see anything.
No clickbait at all.
Informative Reaction Podcast.
So have you heard about well, you might not have, but if you're a wrestling fan, WWE, which is the king of wrestling, and has been for the past over 20 years.
Probably longer.
Probably ever.
Yeah.
But they don't have, for the past 20 years, they haven't had any competition. They recently, I don't know if they sold it or they just loaned it or whatever, but the Peacock network by NBC has bought the rights to their entire library, which, if you've been following wrestling at all, means pretty much the entire history of wrestling, since they became a monopoly at some point and bought up all the libraries for all the previous companies.
And if you've been following NBC and Peacock, Peacock is pretty woke.
And if you've watched WWE at any time in your life, especially in the late 90s, early 2000s, it was pretty unwoke, if you will.
It was
wild.
Ass.
It was like Jerry Springer, like TV talk shows gone nuts.
Right.
You had people beating up women. You had, like people being set on fire, being blown up,
thrown on glass, cage matches, and
thumbtack matches,
faces all bloody,
ladders, and it was the highest ratings in the company's history to this day.
But before you continue, I want to say one of my ultimate dreams, and this is related to wrestling, have always been to run out from the back You know how they come like save the dude
Oh, yeah.
and slide up under the ropes, and they come in and just start saving everybody like that. That was so cool. Like the dude just, oh no!
So that being said, all the pay-per-views going forward are going to be on Peacock because WWE had their own network, the WWE network, and more or less they sold it to Peacock. And so what Peacock's having to do, since they're so woke, is they're going retroactively going back and editing content to suit their business model or whatever you want to call it. For instance, actually, to quote them, NBC Universal said that Peacock was reviewing WWE content to ensure that it aligns with Peacock's standards and practices.
And this is an article titled "Peacock Removes Infamous Attitude Era Promo from WWE Raw Episode."
So far, people have only been able to find that they've removed 3 things. So I'm going to present those 3 things and then present 1 or 2 that I've found that probably get removed in the future as well.
Right.
I mean, but there's literally going to be hundreds of stuff. There's going to be complete weeks or months going to be
right.
So the first one is John Cena, who at the time was a white rapper character,
The Wigger,
if you will.
Because Eminem was up and coming and pretty popular at the time.
And a lot of WWE characters were based on pop culture.
And for the record, John Cena is legit cool.
No, seriously.
Yeah.
I think he has the world record for Make-A-Wish wishes granted.
Right.
So anyway, he's the champion at the time. This is... I don't remember what... 2005.
2005. Right.
2005. So you could only imagine the backlash that would happen if this were to go on today. And he's backstage, and the chairman of the company, Vince McMahon, who owns the company, tries to have a relatable conversation with his white, black champion friend.
Right. Let's just say hip.
Hip. Yeah, he's trying to be hip.
He's being hip.
He was a different age. He's a different character altogether. And you can't see it because you don't see the video, but the funny part is, at the time, was there is another actual black wrestler, capital B, named Booker T, who was standing off to the side, and he overheard this conversation. So you'll catch the tail end of this, of Booker T reacting affirmatively to what Vince McMahon said to John Cena. Here we go.
What's up, boss? How you doing?
Yeah. What's good in the hood?
Just holding it down, trying to take care of business.
Keep it up. I'm a nigga.
Tell me he didn't just say that.
So at the time, that was one of Booker T's catchphrases. Tell me he did not just say that. But every other time wasn't doing a reaction to some racial thing. So that's one that was the first one that was scrubbed.
And notwithstanding the N-word part, the funny thing is, like I said, how he was trying to be hip was good in the hood. And then you got John Cena, not just chilling. You know,
Right.
My nigga.
Classic. So this next one that was scrubbed was Rowdy Roddy Piper against Bad News Brown. And they pulled the whole match. I'm not sure if they pulled this interview that I'm about to show. But the match, Bad News Brown is a capital B wrestler.
Black.
Big, mean sumbitch. And Roddy Piper did the match in half black body. Half his body was black. But
it was to make a point.
Yeah, exactly. If you watch the interview,
He nothing but a. If I'm gonna.
Oh, who's running the board over there? Who's doing who's the producer? Who's producing?
Sorry, it's my first time. Let's try this again. So Roddy Piper comes out. Mean Gene Okerlund, classic interviewers interviewing, "What's up, Hot Rod?" You can't see Hot Rod's face. He's only turned to one side. And then at a certain point during the interview, he turns and faces the camera, and you see that he's half blackface.
And what year would you say this is?
1990.
1990.
Right. So here we go.
Between Bad News Brown and yourself, Mr. Piper, I would have to say that indeed you are two of the classic brawlers in the World Wrestling Federation.
No! I come from Scotland. I come from Glasgow. Took a long time for them people in Glasgow to be proud of me. I hear Bad News Brown. He talking about Harlem, how he comes from Harlem and how he's proud to be from Harlem. So I said to Sapphire, Sapphire, you cute little thing, I said,
I'm not sure who Sapphire
how proud
is.
are they in
Me neither.
Harlem?
Maybe his
they
wife.
Say they don't think Bad News is white. They don't think Bad News is black. They just think he's a jerk. That's all they think he is.
And that's when he turns and you see the half face.
You see now?
Half black
I
face.
can stand here
Like
and I
Kaepernick.
can be black. Beat it. I can be white.
See, that's the thing that make it, I guess, kind of cool or make the point. Like he said, I could be black and did something. He said I could be white and say did something to mock whites.
He's saying it doesn't matter what color you are, it's what's inside
If
you.
I'm going to
Exactly.
brawl in WrestleMania 6, and I have been in a few WrestleMania.
So they scrubbed it simply for the fact that he had half black
Half
body.
black, half black face body.
Half black. Like Braveheart, except black instead of blue. I have two more things that I think will probably be removed in the future.
And do you think it should be removed?
I don't think it should.
Like, I mean,
If you want to put a disclaimer, be my guest. It's your network. I mean, it's their network. They do whatever they want.
and given the, I guess, structure of wrestling, which most people understand and know the presentation of it, the showmanship of the how bombastic it is, how kind of over the top it is, how they make caricatures of themselves almost.
Well,
And you know how set up it is. You know what I mean? You think people will more or less, isn't that the point to understand that they're mocking this stuff? Or it's all to make it's all satire, it's all to
I mean, it is all a reflection of society at whatever time period it's in.
right.
You can find a character that you know, it's like a big movie star or like a big comic book character or something that's like a copy of that. And it's just like all this other stuff. If you try to get rid of history, you don't understand the context from where it's coming from.
Right. And why they even would do that.
Right.
Even if it was something extremely negative, if they were legit trying to be racist or trying to really, really hurt blacks, even in a satirical way, like that's not how it comes off.
Right.
Especially the Rowdy Piper thing. Like, I don't think people, even at the time, or even if if we played that whole clip, will understand how serious of a point that he was making. Because Bad News Brown was, you know, if it was today's, he would be considered kind of like all woke and pro-black and black this, black that. And Roddy Piper was making a point like that really don't matter. So I don't think just taking it away, like you say, you don't understand the context behind and during the times.
Right. There's a reason they were doing it. It's to make money.
Right.
They're selling a product to an audience.
Mm-hmm.
And you could argue that all the audience is racist for liking it, but I don't think they were racist for presenting it that way.
Right. And I mean, even at the time, you don't like. I just don't get the sense that they were legit saying we want to satisfy the racists, because if they wanted to completely satisfy the racists, it would, for one, probably be all white. Roddy Rod Piper wouldn't even be fighting. He wouldn't have been fighting a black.
Right.
It would have been like blacks are not welcome or something like that. So it was to mock.
If you want to talk about racism in professional wrestling, we could talk about different pay scales for black wrestlers versus white wrestlers. That'd be something, but not these scripted promos,
right?
Which is more or less a movie script or a theater script or anything else like that. It doesn't reflect the actual people and what they actually believe.
That's interesting.
So now we can debate on whether or not this one's going to get scrubbed, because, hey, ironically, it's Booker T again, and he was in a different company at the time, and he accidentally said the N-word.
It was.
Now, I don't know if the wokesters are going to. I don't know what they'll do, because it's a black saying the N-word, which to me is okay. I don't know. I'm not woke.
So if we're using woke math, it is okay for blacks to say it.
But he's referring to a white.
But yeah, he's referring to a white, but he's not using the hard R part.
I think he almost does.
No.
Oh, really?
No.
Maybe I'm just hearing it that way.
Not the way he was saying it.
Oh, you're right. It even says it in the description.
But let's play it so we can let everybody know we're talking. It's hilarious.
Oh, it's Mean Gene again. Dude's a legend. Mean Gene. Here we go. Who's running this thing?
Same thing is going to happen in this four-quarter match.
Let me tell you something, Gino. Can you out here talking about a clique? The only clique you need to know about is the Harlem Heat and Sister Sherry. See, because what you dealing with here is the brotherhood. It's non-stop from this point on in WCW. We take what we want, and after we take Lex Luger and the Giant, we want the gold sucker. Hulk Hogan, we coming for you, nigga.
Dude, he could. Before he even said it, he knew that he couldn't even stop himself. He could hear it coming after you.
He turns away from the microphone as he's saying it. Yeah.
It was a legit gaffe. You know what I mean?
He's standing there with Sensational Sherry, and she just smiles at him. She knows what happened. He puts his hands over his face. He knows what's happened. It was live back then, and that
right.
So I'm curious to see if they're gonna scrub that one.
If I was putting money on it, I'd say no, only because he's a capital B.
Right.
And he's using it in proper context. So I doubt they scrubbed that one, but that one was funny. It was a legit gaffe. A legit gaffe, man.
So anyway, that's all I have for Peacock, and you have earned my
Snowflake of the Week.
And there'll probably be a lot more as time goes on, because people will start watching Peacock and noting what is getting scrubbed and what isn't.
They're already watching it, the wokesters. If they watch Peacock, they probably watch MSNBC every day.
Right.
Affirmative Reaction Podcast.
One of the things that is, I guess, in the news and hiding being talked about right now on all kinds of levels is the voting bill that the Georgia legislature just passed and the governor signed into law the other week or other day, depending on when you're listening to this. And the main narrative, of course, is that it is a bill to encourage voter suppression. And I think we kind of can assume we know why. It's a bill in Georgia. The governor is a white Republican.
Now, let me note that he's the one that Trump called, and that was recorded, and he didn't do anything that Trump wanted him to do.
No, he actually got trashed.
Exactly.
By Team Trump and, a select few Republicans along with the Georgia Secretary of State. But everybody from the president to Fortune 500 CEOs to athletes to your social media people are calling this voter bill voter suppression. And one thing I've noticed is the general rhetoric, which no one cares to investigate or question, that this bill impacts black people. No one says why or gives you any example of how or what specifically in the bill is racist and voter suppression. You have the president of the United States calling this Jim Crow on steroids. The current prevailing narrative right now is this is Jim Crow 2.0. So whether you turn on CNN, MSNBC, you scroll down Twitter, your Facebook, or hear people out and about in the world, they're calling this Jim Crow 2.0.
Or Jim Eagle.
Or Jim Eagle, as Joe Biden says. He said, this isn't Jim Crow, this is Jim Eagle. That's...
Well, I don't know if he... Because an eagle in golf is the best shot you can make. So I don't know if that's what he meant.
Hey, that means it's good, right?
Not Jim Birdie. Not Jim Parr.
But according to the mainstream people, this voting bill is voter suppression. Now, before I dig into this and actually point out and highlight and kind of debate and or debunk a few specific things that people are noting, I will point out that the Washington Post put out an article where they gave Joe Biden 4 Pinocchios for basically lying about what's in this bill, as is the mainstream media, and people believe it.
How many Pinocchios are the most? I've never seen that.
I don't think anybody have gotten 4 Pinocchios.
I mean, is it a scale of 1 to something? Or
That might be 1 to 5.
Oh, okay.
It might be 1 to 5.
Well, that's pretty high then.
But whenever I hear anything related to like racism, whether I'm like, all right, yeah, that is racism, or I'm like, no, that's not. I'm like, I want to see what it is, what they're talking about. And you hear about this bill, this voting bill, and some of the things that people are pointing out that are racist. Well, let me take a step back. First, like I said, the rhetoric is the whole bill is racist, right? And then if you was to ask somebody, well, hey, what's in it that's racist? They'll start pointing out some certain things that the mainstream media has been saying that kind of sort of has really nothing to do with voting. So one of the things that they're talking about is it's a misdemeanor to hand out water and snacks.
Water.
They say it's a misdemeanor to hand out. They say it's a misdemeanor to hand out the water and snacks.
So I don't want to get too specific here, but what snacks exactly were they referring to?
Nothing in particular.
Did they say don't hand out purple drink? Now that would be racist.
So I've been paying attention to this since they introduced this bill in the House of Representatives in Georgia before it even became law. And it really wasn't on too many people's radar. But now that it is law, it's been signed by the governor, so it is law. People are saying that it's racist, but don't know exactly what's in it. The president didn't even know what's in it. He pretty much flat out lied. The media is flat out lying about what's in this bill. One of the lies is they said that this bill made it a felony to hand out water and snacks.
Water.
And for one thing, I'm like, why are we focused on that? Just the water and snacks. And do we exactly know what it said? Because I made a social media posting about this and kind of triggered some people. And one of the first things somebody asked me was, so you think it's okay for it to be a felony to hand out water and snacks?
Oh.
And I was like, well, for one thing, it's not a felony. And two, this isn't really anything new. So if you go to the bill, which you can find online if you was to just Google Georgia voting bill, the PDF of all 90 or 100 pages will pop up.
95.
95 pages.
See it right here.
And Section 33 of this bill is related to handing out water or snacks or anything. And I'll just read a little bit of this here. In Section 33, it says, no person shall solicit votes in any manner or by any means or method, nor shall any person distribute or display any campaign material, nor shall any person give, offer to give, or participate in the giving of any money or gifts, including but not limited to food and drink to an elector, nor shall any person solicit signatures for any petition, nor shall any person other than election official discharging their duties establish or set up any tables or booths on any day in which ballots are being cast. And you go any further to present, this means within 150 feet of the outer edge of any building within which a polling place is established, within any polling place, or within 25 feet of any voter standing in line to vote at any polling place.
So my question is, what is this in response to? In the last election, did they have like all these booths set up and they were just giving out free food and stuff? Hey, vote this, vote this, vote this. Because I don't follow Georgia politics.
It was in response to lines during COVID being like 4 or 5 hours, and you had what you call like the water hustle of people walking up to the lines selling water to people, not just handing them out, but selling water to people. So in my estimation, that will be what this would be in response to. But the giving of gifts, money, and
so just go 151 feet away and
exactly.
set up your booth.
Right.
If that's what you're trying to do.
Exactly. But the whole thing about campaigning close to the polling place, that's always been a law since voting has been a thing. Like as far as like that water and food can be considered a gift.
Water.
You know what I mean? That can be considered a gift. But the question would beg is, how is that racist and how would that suppress a vote? Exactly. So if you are estimating that you might be in this line,
it says 25 feet of any voter, not any BIPOC voter.
That is true.
Or any
don't specify any
black voter.
But the narrative is that this will have the most desperate impact in the urban communities in like the city of Atlanta, the county of Fulton, around Savannah and things like that, because the little black kids were trying to sell bottles of water. But as it says in the bill,
continue.
As it says in the bill, this code section shall not be construed to prohibit a poll officer from distributing materials as required by law, which are necessary for the purpose of instructing electors, or from distributing materials prepared by the Secretary of State, which are designed solely for the purpose of encouraging voter participation in the election being conducted, or from making available self-service water from an unattended receptacle to an elector waiting in line to vote. So
you can get your water
from a poll worker. The poll worker can bring you water. It don't say that water specifically at all. Like, no, you just can't drink water. Nor does it say you can't bring your own water.
It didn't say you can't bring your own cooler.
Because people, for damn sure, they already bring their own chairs.
Right.
So that's one thing that I was like, come on now, this is what y'all pushing as the voter suppression. But another thing, of course, is one of the main things is voter ID. Now, I posed this question to my lovely girlfriend.
Oof.
Not to say that because she was in agreement with this, just, we just talking and I brought this up. I say, what are you doing with your life that you don't have any form of identification?
She ain't?
No, just in general.
Oh.
I'm not saying that she don't have ID. I'm just
trying
saying
to circumvent the laws of the United States.
Right. And if, let's just say this is to attack some group of black people that don't have ID, why would the rally not be to go get these people ID? Like, why is that not, like, so I heard a report today from Dana Perino on Fox News that Stacey Abrams has already, even before this bill was signed into law, as it was being passed through the House, bought the domain name for Jim Crow 2.0. And the governor said, as he signed this bill, you're going to see all kind of money spent on ads and campaigns talking about how racist this bill is. But you never hear, this bill is racist. You need to look in it. You need to see this. And so, voter ID. Or let me take a step back. Let's go to another part of it. They saying that it limits drop boxes and it limits early voting. Now, prior to COVID, or let me take another step back, this bill is essentially making some of the changes that they arbitrarily made for COVID law, like drop boxes. So in early voting. So before COVID, out of the 159 counties in Georgia, nearly 100 didn't have drop boxes or allowed drop boxes at all before COVID. Now that this bill has been signed into law, it's a law that every single county in the state, every single county in the state must have drop boxes. And
how many are there? Like 60?
159.
Oh, jeez.
But like I said, before COVID, nearly 100 did not have drop boxes. Nearly 100 did not have any kind of early voting on Sunday or Saturday. Now that this bill has been signed into law, it is law that every single county in the state has to allow at least 2 Saturdays of early voting, with Sunday being optional. That was something that was actually brought up during the 2018 after that 2018 gubernatorial race in which Stacey Abrams
this one
lost. Huh?
This one has done all that.
This bill that dealt with, this is the one that was just signed.
Seems like good things to me.
Yeah, and it was something that the Democrats in Georgia was pushing. They've been pushing early voting, making early voting laws since 2018.
So nobody's complaining about that from the woke side.
No, they are complaining. They're complaining about it because they say it limits drop boxes. They're lying.
Oh, okay.
They're lying. They're lying.
It limits it, even though it added to it.
If that makes any sense, it added to it.
I'm really interested to see about this requiring an ID to vote. I thought that was a normal thing. I thought that made sense to me. If you have an ID, it proves that you exist as a person, right?
Yes.
So why is it racist to require somebody having an ID?
I'm not sure. I guess because the supposition is that most black people don't have an ID.
Is that true, though?
I I don't want. I can't speak.
How do you buy alcohol if you?
I can't speak for every single black person, but I would imagine that you know it's not hard to have an ID, to get an ID.
It's very easy. In California, you can get an ID without even having an address. So you could come here from wherever and go to the DMV and get a driver's license without actually having a place of residence in California.
In every single state, to vote in person and to register to vote, you have to have an ID. So the gripe is that you have to have an ID for absentee voting or mail-in voting. And so in this bill, in Georgia State Bill 202, Section 25, it says any person applying for absentee by mail ballot shall make an application in writing on a form made available by the Secretary of State. In order to confirm the identity of the voter, such form shall require the elector to provide his or her name, date of birth, address as registered, address where the elector wishes the ballot to be mailed, and the number of his or her Georgia's driver license or identification card pursuant to Article 5 of Chapter 5 of Title 40. Title 40 in Georgia is a list of acceptable identifications. If such elector does not have a Georgia's driver's license or identification card, the elector shall affirm this fact in the manner prescribed in the application, and the elector shall provide a copy of a form of identification listed in the subsection of Code Section 21-417, which is a list of acceptable forms of identification in the state of Georgia, which includes if you're a government employee, your government photo ID, a government issued check, a government issued document. If you are when I say government, that means federal, state, and county. Like I said, a government issued document, so that could be like your Social Security check, your disability check, your tax refund check, your tax documents that has your Social Security number, anything with your Social Security number on it, bank statements, bank documents, and you can make a copy of that and give it to the Secretary of State, and you can use that as a form of identification. So with that said, I think about this and I ask, how is this suppression? How is that racist? And if you think about the black people in the state, again, what are they doing with their lives that they don't have either one of those forms of identification?
What about the other minorities?
Exactly. And that's interesting you bring that up, because in 2018 in the state of Georgia, it was actually a group of Muslims and a group of Asians who brought a lawsuit against the Georgia Secretary of State for voter suppression. It wasn't blacks. It wasn't the blacks who brought that 2018 lawsuit in Georgia. So I just don't see how any of this is racist or suppression.
It just goes back to the whole, and you can see this across the board. Anytime you don't agree with the wokes anywhere, you're a racist. Like, that's their go-to.
Literally.
That's the Joker card for them.
Right.
Because for them, their worldview is that this country was founded on racism, and therefore all the institutions that came from it are racist.
And are still racist.
No
matter if it's a minority running that institution, or it's a large part of minorities running the institution. I don't get it. And like I say, you hear this being called Jim Crow 2.0. And I don't think anyone has, unless you actually study some of this stuff, have seen what Jim Crow laws were during the time.
I've never studied it. I've only heard the name.
Right. And a thing that is not known to many is people who are so beholden to the Democrat Party and think that everything Republican is racist. The people who voted for these laws, the Jim Crow laws, and enacted these laws and fought to keep these laws in place, historically were the Democrats. They were the Democrats.
Oof.
That's where you get the term Dixiecrats. It was Southern Democrats. But let's read a couple of Jim Crow laws from the state of Georgia from back in the day. This is from the National Park Service. Jim Crow laws in Georgia. It shall be unlawful for any amateur colored baseball team to play baseball in any vacant lot or baseball diamond within 2 blocks of any playground devoted to the white race.
Oof.
So this is stuff that was in the books, on the books, in laws. This isn't in none of these laws today.
It literally says colored and white.
Speaking of colored, let's see some more Jim Crow laws from the state of Georgia. No colored barber shall serve as a barber to white women or girls. All persons licensed to conduct a restaurant shall serve either white people exclusively or colored people exclusively. So that's actually separate, but that's literally separate but equal. These are Jim Crow laws. This is Jim Crow OG, not Jim Crow 2.0. This is
Not Jim Eagle.
Jim.
Not Jim Steroids, boy.
It shall be unlawful for a white person to marry anyone except a white person. Now, let me tell you something about that. The Midwest is the interracial capital of the world. It has to be. I see the most interracial couples when I'm in the Midwest, man.
You mean today?
Today. I see the most interracial couples, man.
I don't know.
So that's Jim Crow. Those are Jim Crow laws. So when the state of Georgia says, no, you can't hand out anything to anybody in line, including water. You can't even give them a flyer if you're not a poll worker.
You said woker.
I did.
Freud was right.
So they saying that's similar to Jim Crow. Dude, who was it? Was it Jack Johnson who was arrested for just taking a white girl across state lines?
Who was Jack Johnson?
He was a boxer. He was the first African American heavyweight champion in like the 1910s and shit.
Oh.
He was actually pardoned by Trump. Posthumously.
Oh, okay. I was like, he was still alive in 1910s?
Posthumously.
Posthumously.
So that's Jim Crow.
So what they're saying is these laws, these suppressive laws, are racist. Although they don't spell it out.
Nope.
Like these do.
Nope.
It's more subversive.
That's what they say. But they also don't. They fail to realize that bill also states that in the event that you're in county jail during an election and you're still eligible to vote, meaning you haven't been convicted of a felony, you still have access to voting. You can request an absentee ballot.
In jail.
In county jail. What else do we have?
Any actually racist stuff they put in that bill? Because I haven't heard anything.
No.
But then again, I'm white, so what would I know?
But dig this. This is something that I noted, and this was more or less just an observation. It's an observation, not something that just like just showing support. So since 2012, the Republican Party minority support has increases every election cycle.
Right.
And the minority support for Democrats go down. So how do you rally up your minority base? How do you rally up black people without actually pitching ideas that they might agree with? Hey, that's racist.
You might be onto something.
That's racist. In the 2020 election, the Democrat Party had 75% of the black vote. That was the lowest since 2004. Why?
75%?
75%. That's
Well,
that.
what they have in the previous election.
80, 88, almost 90. Delta CEO
Oof.
is the snowflake.
Don't ever leave the airport.
Delta CEO is my snowflake of the week because it is reported that he praised the Georgia voting bill.
Look at that guy. He looks older than McConnell.
Ed Bastian, the chief executive of Delta Airlines.
Bastian's the name of that kid in the Neverending Story.
It is. It's reported that he praised this bill before it was signed into law, and not even about a week later, he has reversed course. According to the New York Times, Delta and Coca-Cola reversed course on Georgia voting law, stating crystal opposition.
That's such a weird picture. That look how he's over the L&T. I don't know. It's just, I don't know if one of their editors did that or Delta put that out.
But one thing I like to point out with this guy is, again, he's speaking in
woke
complete rhetoric. He's not pointing out anything specific in this bill that is racist or that affects black people. So, he says, in the memo, Mr. Bastian said it was only after the law was passed that he truly understood the degree in which it would impose restrictions on black voters.
Wait, a memo? Wait,
from
who?
In this memo, he says...
Did he not read the bill?
No, he didn't read the bill.
Oh.
Of course he didn't read it.
So it was a memo that turned his head.
After having time to now fully understand all that is in the bill, coupled with discussions with leaders and employees in the black community, it is evident that the bill includes provisions that will make it harder for any underrepresented voter, particularly black voters with a capital B, to exercise their constitutional right to elect their representatives. He said, that is wrong. The entire rationale for this bill was based on a lie. Voter suppression is a lie. I'm gonna go ahead and say that. So politically, you got the left and you have the right. The right says voter fraud. It is clear that there is no amount of voter fraud that changed the election. Even people on the right have accepted that.
Not even from Dominion.
It's something somewhat to that voting machine shit. Not necessarily Dominion, but in 2018, Georgia Democrats were literally saying the same thing. But the left side says voter suppression, and that is their lie. Because no one has pointed out to anything in this bill that suppresses the black vote. They just keep saying it impacts black voters the most. How? All right, they say voter ID. How? Are you telling me, or I think I read this in a CNN article, that nearly 200,000 people in Georgia don't have an ID. Now, if we take the 800,000 number that Stacey Abrams reportedly registered to vote, do you mean to tell me 200,000 of those people don't have an ID?
200,000 black people?
200,000 black people. So somebody isn't being honest here. And it certainly is the media.
I could, maybe this was my white privilege.
White privilege.
But I couldn't imagine going throughout my day without an ID. Well, maybe not my day. I don't use it every day, but at least once a week I have to use my ID for something.
I know before I leave the house I have my ID.
Oh, for sure.
Affirmative Reaction Podcast. 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 Affirmative Reaction Podcast.